Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. So today's video is going to be my April TBR. I got my reading planner handy. This is from Crate, I believe. I bought it off of somebody because I really loved it, and we're gonna look at all of the books that I'm going to plan to read in April 2022. I feel like for this month in particular, there's way too many books that I want to read, and I do not have time for all of them. So there's a bunch of books coming out towards the end of March that I really want to read. There's like 4 that I'm planning on getting and want to read soon. There's plenty others that have come out in the last few months that I'm desperate to read or that I've been wanting to read and have been putting off. So I feel like no matter what I do, this TBR is going to be way too ambitious, but we'll see how I do. So number 1 priority for my April TBR is Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor. This is one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I actually, on Bookish First, did first impressions of the first couple of chapters. I really enjoyed how much I read, and they're actually sending me a copy. I believe it was supposed to go out this past week, so hopefully I can get it soon. But I am so hyped for this book. I have heard if you're a fan of Caraval and The Night Circus, you will really love this book, but it does feel very, from just the little impression that I read, it does feel very Caraval-esque, and so I'm really excited to read it and to get into it more. Basically, what I know about it is that there's 2 sisters, and they are trying to get into this magical hotel, and they get an opportunity to go to Hotel Magnifique, but they realize that when they get there, there's a lot of magic involved and potentially sinister elements, and that having a stay there may cost more than what originally meets the eye. And there's a lot of cool things about this where everyone that stays there, they have to sign away their memories. So when they leave, they have no idea what happened, but they're deliriously happy and they think it was like the best time of their life, but they have no actual memory of what occurred when they stayed. So it sounds really magical and sinister and amazing, and I cannot wait to read it. I will read it immediately as soon as I get a copy of it. The next one that I really want to read that I believe comes out in the beginning of April is The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is book 2 in the Bloodsworn trilogy, and I just recently finished, spoiler alert for my reading wrap up, I just recently finished Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, and I really enjoyed it, and I feel like a lot of it was world building and build up with the 3 different characters whom you're following their perspective. And so I feel like it was a lot of build up, and they are potentially going to come together, or at least more of their storylines will be fleshed out in the second book. So I'm kind of eager to get my hands on it because I want to see where the story is going to go and how this is all going to play out. So that is also one of my anticipated releases, and I'm kind of anxious to get to it. So I would really like to get to it in April if I can, to figure out how the story continues. And for The Shadow of the Gods, basically the premise of that book is you're following 3 different characters: a warrior, a thrall who is escaping their captors and wanting to make a name for himself and avenge his sister, and he is basically like an ex-slave, and then a mother who is trying to get retribution. And I can't really say a lot more than that without spoiling some of the plot points, but also there's a lot of vagueness to this plot that you won't really understand until you're getting into it. But basically there were these gods that were terrifying and horrible, and there's like a dragon, a wolf, a rat, a lot of different ones, and they are kind of like lore at this point, and people aren't sure if they're actually real because they've been dead for so long. But then things start happening, and the characters start to question if the gods are really dead and what happens if they were to come back and be unleashed on the world again. And so I'm very excited to continue this trilogy, and hopefully I can this month. The next one I'm looking to start this month, and I'm kind of intimidated because even holding it up is a challenge, and that is Master Artificer by Justin T. Call. And this is book 2 in the Silent God series, and this is kind of picking up where Master of Sorrows left off, where you're following Anev and this ragtag group of characters. This is a chonky book, like over 800 pages, chonky book. So I'm a little intimidated, but right now, so this is such an odd thing to say, I really like listening to these books and going back and forth reading and listening, especially when they're this big, because it helps me get through them. Not like I'm trying to get through them to finish them because I don't like them, but it just helps me make progress when I'm not feeling like sitting down and reading this chunky book. And so right now on Audible, Master Artificer and Master of Sorrows are included in your subscription. So the way kind of Audible has been working recently is that you do get credits towards books that you can use 1 credit for 1 book. But you also have some included in the Plus catalog, and this is included in the Plus catalog at the moment. And I don't want to keep Audible forever because it is a charge every month that I'm trying to save, and I've had it for a few months and have been able to utilize it, and it's been great, but I don't want to keep paying for it all the time. So I want to get this book read because once I discontinue my membership, this will not be available on audiobook to me anymore in the Plus catalog. So I want to get this read soon. I know that's a really strange reason, but I want to continue this series anyway, and so it kind of pushes me to do it sooner. So I'm hoping to get this read in April. I'm pretty excited about it and have no idea where the story is going to go. And again, it's kind of a vague synopsis, but for Master of Sorrows, it's basically pitched as a Dark Lord origin story. But in my opinion, you do not really know who the Dark Lord is, even though you're following the main character Enev and his perspective. I believe you do not know who the Dark Lord origin story is about, and you're kind of following all of these events where magic is seen as evil, and he's kind of wrestling with his thoughts about, is it actually evil when it can do these good things? And maybe this basically warrior guild that I've been training for my whole life because they saved me when I was a child, maybe this isn't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe these beliefs need to be challenged. And the story kind of goes from there. And this is book 2, as I said, and you're following the story from how the first one left off. Obviously, I can't tell you what that entails, but I'm curious how this story will develop over time, and if you'll find out who the Dark Lord is in this book, or if it's going to take like all 4 books, or how it's going to go. But hopefully this will give me some more answers, and I'm excited to start it. Another book I would love to start this month, partially because I bought it a while ago and I keep meaning to start it and just never made the opportunity to, is Rapacidic by Laura Thalassa. So I don't know a ton about this author or this book, but I know that this is the book 1 in the Bargainer series, and I know the cover is beautiful. And actually one of the reasons I was drawn to this book was the beautiful cover with this like bat wing, and I thought the name was really elegant and different. So I was kind of drawn to this book before I even really knew what it was about. And I believe it is kind of like a dark fantasy romance, but it sounds really interesting because you're following a siren who makes deals with this bargainer. And the bargainer will make deals with people, but they're known to be kind of ruthless and vicious and getting paid for these favors or bargains that they strike deals for. And when you strike a deal with a bargainer, you get a black bead, I believe, and this black bead symbolizes one favor, etc. And it's kind of a big deal to have them because the bargainer will demand payment and be scary about it. So having bargains with them is a big deal. It's kind of seen as like an IOU. And this main character is a siren, and she has been collecting favors for 7 years and has a string of beads wrapped around her arm. And so basically only death or repayment will fulfill the obligations. When you fulfill the obligations, the beads disappear. And again, he gives you this favor, he'll give you anything you want for a price, but he always comes to collect. And so it sounds kind of sinister and scary, and she has all of these favors that she's built up, but he's never come to collect until now. So despite all of that happening in the story, there's also these murders happening. So I believe it's kind of also like a fantastical murder mystery. And there's been like whispers of an evil that's being awoken. So I'm kind of really intrigued by this series, and that's all I know about it. So I would really like to get to it. And I think once I get into it, I will go through it really quickly, just because that is really interesting to me. Because the dark fantastical elements and the murder mystery is really cool. So I think I will fly through this. And I do have the first book, obviously. And then recently, Audible had a sale on their audiobooks, and I bought the second and third in this series for like $2 or $3 a piece of the audiobooks. So hopefully I really like this series, and if so, I can like fly through it. But yeah, I'm hoping to get to this finally because I've been meaning to for a while. Another book that's been on my radar for a while and I really wanted to read but haven't had the chance to pick up yet is The Atlas 6 by Olive E. Blake. Obviously, you've heard about this by now. It's been extremely hyped. This was the self-published version, and a publisher has recently picked up this book, and so now it's being republished. So it's being reprinted by Tor and another UK publishing house, but I'm not sure what that publishing house is at the moment. But I don't know a lot about this except that it's a dark academia story about the Alexandrian library, and it's kind of told as the Alexandrian society, and that you're having to kind of battle it out to become a part of the society. I'll kind of read you a little bit of this back portion here because I think it explains it really well. And it says, the Alexandrian society, caretakers of lost knowledge from the greatest civilizations of antiquity, are the foremost secret society of the magical academicians in the world. Those who earn a place among the Alexandrians will secure a life of wealth, power, and prestige beyond their wildest dreams. And each decade only the 6 most uniquely talented magicians are selected to be considered for initiation. And so these 6 people are coming together to be initiated into the society, but then they find out that only 5 of them will be initiated and 1 will be eliminated. It sounds like a very magical, dark academia type story. It sounds really interesting. I think this is more character driven than story driven, and depending on which version I read of this, because I do think I have the published version as well, may impact my enjoyment of it, because I know there was edits done to this for a reason, but I do believe it's more character driven, and so depending on the edits and everything, that might affect my enjoyment. So we'll see which one I end up going for. I might actually get the audiobook because I've heard it's read by a full cast of characters, which is really fun. But this is one that's been on my radar and I thought I would really enjoy for a while. I really want to get to it, so hopefully I can make time to get to it in April. The next one that I would really like to read if I have time is A Forgery of Roses by Jessica Olsen. And this is the same author as Sing Me Forgotten, which was also a book that I was really curious about and really wanted to read but never got to. And I don't know a lot about the synopsis because I've read it a million times, but then it just kind of like, you know, you read a bunch of other stuff and it just kind of escapes your mind. But I know that the magic system for this is art-based, and that sounds really creative and interesting. I've heard this is also kind of a fantasy murder mystery. And I've heard if you really like Stalking Jack the Ripper, you will like this book, and I love Stalking Jack the Ripper. And it just sounds very dark and eerie and magical and mystical, and I don't know why. I don't think this is in any of the synopsis or any of the comparisons, but it gives me like Picture of Dorian Gray vibes. I don't know why that is, but that's what I think of every time I see this book and hear about like the art magic system and how it's kind of dark and sinister. And so I'm really excited about this book, even though obviously I don't really know a lot about the story, but it sounds really great. And it sounds like something I will really enjoy just from what I've heard or what I've seen. And I'm hoping to get it when it comes out very soon and read it, but obviously I've got a lot of things that are coming out and that I really want to get to soon, so hopefully I can get to it, but if not, I will get to it at a later date. Another one that I would like to prioritize getting read in April, if I can, is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy L. Lynn. This I also read a first impressions of, so I believe I read like the first chapter or so on Bookish First. I did not get chosen for a copy of that, but that's okay because I want to buy my own because it sounds great. I don't know everything about it, but the magic system is based on tea and brewing tea, and that you can brew like healing into tea, or you can brew love into tea, and it just sounds so unique and amazing, and it incorporates a lot of ancient tea making into the story, and so it just sounds beautiful and great. I'm just really intrigued at a magic system based on ancient tea making. It's just so unique and beautiful and amazing, and the cover is stunning. And this is a duology, and the second part of the duology is actually coming on August, so you would be able to like fly through this year, and that's really fun too. You don't really have to wait a long time, and it comes out on March 29th, which is not that far away. I definitely plan on picking this up, and hopefully I can read it in a timely manner and get a review up for you guys. I'm really looking forward to it. Basically, from what I know of the premise, is that you're following this character who accidentally brewed the poison tea that killed her mother and is now currently poisoning and killing her sister. And she's trying to find a remedy for this, and the only way to do so is to go, I believe, to the emperor and like compete in this competition of tea making, and along the way she hopes to uncover her mother's murderer. I guess the story kind of goes from there. That's all I really know about it, but in my first impressions, the writing was beautiful and it sounded like a really interesting magic system, and how the story was gonna go just sounds like it's gonna be good. And so I'm really hoping to get to this as well. Hopefully I can make time for all of these because I am really excited about so many of them, so I hope I can get to all of them. I know this is pretty ambitious of me, but those are a lot of the books that I want to read. There's also a lot of other books that came out this month that I want to read that I'm not even gonna mention in this video because this TBR would be way too long. But I will talk about them in a book haul that I'm planning on filming soon. And of course, the last book that I'm going to be reading in April is going to be my Sprayed Edges shelf draw. So let me get my mug. All right, so we have my mug with all of my Sprayed Edges books written down in here that I add to every time I get a new one. And so we're gonna shake this guy up and see which book that I'm supposed to read this month. I'm scared. This worked out really well for me last time, but I'm always kind of scared about this. Oh, okay. So this is one I've been meaning to read for a long time as well, but never got to, and said I wanted to start this year. So this month's draw for April was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. That's a good pick because I've mentioned that this is very hyped and I really need to get to it, and all these books keep coming out and I'm behind. So I do need to get to it. Let me just grab it. So the monthly pick for my Sprayed Edges TBR jar pick is From Blood and Ash. So this is exciting because I've been meaning to make room for this, and I actually thought about putting this on my TBR, but I was like, no, there's no space, no room, no time for this. Maybe now there is, so that's really cool. So hopefully I will be able to get to this in April and then be able to talk about all of these books that have been hyped, that I've fallen behind on, or that are new releases. This could be a great reading month, guys. So this is my shelf pick and looking forward to reading it. Wow, I'm really excited about my April TBR. It seems like a lot of fun and a lot of really great stories, or really hyped stories. So hopefully this will be a great reading month for me and really enjoyable. Those are all the books that I'm planning on reading in April. Please comment down below the books that you want to get to in April, or your thoughts about the books that I'm trying to pick up in April. All right, everyone, well, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting my channel. I wanted to go ahead and say thank you so much for 300 subscribers. That absolutely blows me away. Every day that people deign to watch me and interact with me. I love interacting with you guys. It's so much fun for me. Don't ever feel like you can't ask me for videos or ask for content, because I love to interact with you guys and to pursue any interaction. So always feel free to comment things you would like to see from me. I'll do my best to get it up for you. We're getting closer to 500, so once we hit 500, I will do a giveaway. And I did mention this in my bookshelf tour video, that the giveaway for my 500 subscriber giveaway is going to be a copy of Master of Sorrows by Justin T. Call. So subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe, and once we hit 500, I will give that book away. So please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.